Hi, everyone. I'm Ishita, and I will be having a conversation with our very first guest today on the Inner Circuit podcast, and that is Dr. Olga Pogrebennyk. Did I get your name right, Olga?
Well,
Great. Olga is the founder of the Academy of Smart Lawyers, and she's also the CEO of Ashram Tech, which is a learning and training platform. Welcome, Olga, to our podcast. It's a very first podcast and also a very first podcast of 2025. So, a warm welcome to you, and thank you for joining us today.
it's a pleasure. I'm very much inspired with your work and your book and everything. So I'm very honored, especially to be the first.
Thank you, Olga. So, the theme of this podcast is I want to know your journey as an entrepreneur and founder, but I also want to know your spiritual side, your inner side, what you really are made of. Because I understand as a founder and being in the startup industry for so long, I know that startup founders hustle a lot and it's not easy. So, I want to kind of start this conversation with first asking you about your legal career. Where did you start? When did you become a lawyer? How did it all start?
You mean when I've decided to be a lawyer or when I really started to be a lawyer, or from both
Both,
perspectives?
both perspectives.
I think the idea of, because it's so hard for children, for example, to choose their paths and you have to try many different things. And obviously you can't try everything, but there's some particular things which come to your mind due to circumstances in your life and everything when you think it's a meaningful profession and this is something I would like to do in the future. I was inspired by a few people whom I came across. And also, you can change your career. To be honest, actually, there are so many people who start with one thing and eventually end up with another, which is great. You know, if you choose one path or degree, it doesn't mean you cannot change it in the future. Life
Mm.
is a process where you search for yourself. And now is, I think, time of this kind of professions which are on the borders. And in
Yeah,
my case, it's also the same. I've started really like a lawyer, being inspired by a few things which are pretty personal. I think there's no point really to go to
that's
that.
fine. That's fine.
Maybe in very private conversation, but and then I used to practice. Actually, there's a big element of India in my case.
Amazing.
I started to practice litigation working for the city council.
Okay.
Um, I don't know if I would be very much interested in going on with the same kind of tasks and job. But then I had a very good chance and was invited to join as intern a few law firms in India.
Okay.
And I think it actually changed all my life, to be honest. Since then, I've realized I like to travel. I like to develop new countries, new cultures. And India, for me, was like another world, another planet. And I was very well guided by one of the partners in one of the law firm I used to practice, and he directed me literally to go for studies, for the studies to
Okay.
England. I did it
Yeah.
in that twice. I had two internships. So altogether
Mm.
spent something a little bit less than 1 year in Delhi. And then when I started actual career, legal career, it already helped me to understand what I want. So I wanted something with international law. I wanted
Right.
some international connections, clients, communication, things like that.
Mm.
And it led me to international commercial arbitration. And then I've practiced international commercial arbitration, where, as you may know, most of the cases are governed by English law. So I
Yeah.
had to study English law in order to be
Yeah.
to reach, you know, the appropriate level of competence and
Yeah.
advise clients. Because even though they may be from other jurisdictions, the law which applies to specific contracts or even relationships was exactly English. And after
Mm.
that, I went for studies in the UK. I completed a law degree there, like all key stages at that point. But then I could skip the training contract and things like that and qualified via an exam, and you know this exam pretty
Hello.
well.
Yes, I do. The QLT, yes. Yeah,
And now it's known as SQE, Solicitor Qualifying Examination.
yes.
I actually failed it first. I failed it. And it was such a pain. And things like that happen in your life. It's quite often that you have other problems coming in exactly at the same time. And I had them all around me completely. I was emotionally broke. And
Mm.
then
Can I ask something there, Olga? How old were you at that time?
uh, I were I think I was 30 years old, something, 29,
Okay.
30.
Yeah,
Mm.
yeah.
I was
Okay.
already an adult, you know. Mm.
Yeah, yeah. I know it's really hard. I failed my first exam too, and this one's not like an easy taker. When I took the exam, I was 30, I was married, I came to a foreign country, and everything was so new. And, and when all this hardship, what happened then? How did you deal with all the things? What was going on in your mind? What was the breaking point?
I really had a crisis, to be honest. Uh, Also because of other factors which have nothing to do with this exam and possibly
Yeah.
beyond the session too. But then there was a person who really inspired me. I remember she was like a spiritual
Okay.
person, and um, she said something like, "Oh, it's not a failure. It's actually maybe it's your pass. Maybe that's by sitting this exam another time, by revising the law, you actually maybe need it for some reason for your career, or maybe life has given you some chance. Just look at it from broader perspective, something of that nature." Um, and eventually, I passed it. And at that time, I actually, when I sat it for the second time, I didn't think about business. It's just when I cleared it, I've realized actually I know about this exam so many things.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I see this really niche on the market because I know that from inside of the actual exam, I knew what is required in order to prepare someone because I went through that. I kind of tried to prepare myself. And I also had one student who passed the exam before me. So I helped him to
Right,
prepare a little bit. We met on the first attempt. And then he said, something I can do, and this will bring me freedom I was dreaming about. Because if you are an entrepreneur, you can go to different places. If you work remotely, which is very much possible. I've started to think about online education. It was way before COVID. From
mm,
COVID, we started to face those different kind of online platforms and Zoom and other kind of tools, etc. But I believed in this way before, without this kind of event, and I've just realized that this failure actually pushed me to my own way in life.
yeah. So it made you stronger, more resilient, and to take on anything that comes your way, essentially.
Yeah,
Which
yeah.
year did you qualify the QLTS?
I think I passed it in 2016, and because when I've got the results actually, and I've realized that that may be my choice for the future to run the course to help other people to pass the exam.
Yes,
Um, I didn't apply for admission straight away because I sped it up with the creation of materials, and things like that. So it eventually took me more than half of a year get registered on the role of solicitors.
right.
But so we may say it was. I think I was registered uh, in 2017 in the early or something in
Okay.
2017.
How was that transition from being a lawyer to being a founder, running your own business? What was that transition like?
As I've said, like I think that's a very good point which you already made, that it's very hard to start something, especially like own business. I would compare if you lift some heavy weight when you actually when already you hold it, it's way easier than when you have to, start from early beginning. I think because there have been a lot of troubles all around, and exams was just a small point out of all. I had a lot of this, if I may say, energies or something in
Sure.
me, linked to different negative events, and I had to reinforce it to them in a specific direction. And I think that gave me a lot of power to lift it. My first year was just, as far as I remember, I just was working all the time.
Hmm.
Uh, and I had to learn new things, which were sometimes, quite often, were not very much interesting to me,
Yeah, yeah,
because you have to start selling. You have to get involved with different marketing techniques. You have to learn about search engine optimization. You have
yeah.
to think about how to sell, what to say to people, what not to say. I still don't know how to convince them that the things are not that bad and they make their own choice. Then maybe I could
Yeah,
have more effectively than I do
yes,
now. But the thing is, this is the life path, so you have
yes.
to build it on the way. So
Yeah, absolutely. Agree with you on that because obviously you were trained as a lawyer, right, for a while, and you were an advocate as well in Ukraine, right? So you basically think in a certain way as a lawyer. But if you're running a business, you need to have a different set of skills. Like you said, selling was important, marketing was important, and also the aspect of digital marketing is also important, like the SEO bit. So obviously you have to wear multiple hats as a founder or a business owner, right? And you possibly like took on the challenges because you were in a position where nothing was working out, and then suddenly you had to rise to the occasion. You had to build yourself up, get those skill sets, and then go out to the open and get people to enroll to your course, right? So once Oski Smart was established, like where was that point when you felt like, yes, I've established my business now, and from here I'm going to scale it? When did you reach that point once you started your business?
I think there's no such a point, to be honest. With a business, it's always a challenge. You face new competition, and that's what actually happened. So, at some point when the SQE, Solicitor Qualifying Exam, was introduced, the SQE was, in my opinion, completely developed based on qualified lawyer transfer scheme, which is QLTS, and OSCE is a part of this scheme. They tested this exam on foreign qualified lawyers, improved it, and introduced it to locals as well, to the domestic candidates, but application worldwide. So it became a
Hmm.
very huge market, also internally. Otherwise, it was just for foreign qualified. So it was a niche market. Now it's a huge market. And
Okay.
I faced and I'm facing competition from largest university in the UK and on this planet too.
Yeah,
Actually,
sorry, Olga. Sorry,
started
one second. So I'm
very
just trying to understand here. So first, the QLTS, it was only open for foreign qualified lawyers. So lawyers who were qualified in their jurisdictions could take the exam. But now you say there's a transition. So can anybody take the exam, irrespective of whether they're qualified somewhere or not?
absolutely everyone, even
Okay.
person who doesn't have a law degree. So
Okay.
everyone. That's just the change which happened on
Interesting.
the market, which was beyond my control.
Yeah,
They
yeah,
changed these requirements. They also granted exemptions to various our audience, our
yeah.
clients, those who actually were our main customers. So I had to completely rebuild everything and start from early beginning after I already proved it.
Right,
So
right.
with the business, it's quite often like this, and you can't stay still. You have to adjust, adopt, change. It's always, and even more if we talk about swapping or switching from legal career to business career, there's another reef, another problem, in my opinion. As lawyers, we all the time work with risks.
Yes.
And this is the whole, I think, a little bit misleading concept of human being, which is possibly linked to a question of fear of death. With risks, we try to have insurance, but actually it doesn't help, to be honest. Absolutely, if your nearest will be paid 1 million, it's not going to help you to, you know
Yeah.
and things like that. So it's all about that. And legal profession is at the core of this. So, as legal professionals, giving advice to our clients, what we do, we try to manage the risks and
Mhm.
try to avoid them as much as possible. And
Yeah.
certain clients may be very angry on you, saying like, "Oh, you all the time see so many issues. Like, can we just do this way and that?" You know exactly what I'm talking about. When
Yes.
you are a businessman, you should start thinking as some of your clients, because if you
Right.
don't assume the risks, if you don't actually accept them, you're not going to move far away. So,
Yeah.
and this is difficult to for a lawyer. That's why I think it's difficult for someone from legal background to
Yeah.
swap business, because you have to overcome this point with the risk.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, that's a very good point because as lawyers, we flag risks, right? We know the law, we know what's the problem with your business structure. So we'll flag the risks. But as a business owner, you have to assume that risk. You have to decide whether this opportunity is worth taking that risk or not. And if it's a loss on you, right? But as lawyers, we get paid irrespective. So that's a
Exactly.
very good point.
Our main, we are paid for that. That's
Yeah,
while here you have to, you still, everyone should keep in mind risks, even when you walk the street.
yeah,
But you should manage them. And for certain professions, you have to reduce them, because business is about taking risks, to be honest. You
yeah.
often you don't have any guarantees, and even to have some good commercial insurance, you have to have some assets for to pay for the premium and things like that. So that was a little bit like a point for me to overcome mentally.
Okay. And how much of a toll was it on you when you found out that obviously they have changed the whole format of the exam and now you have to make changes. So when you transition from OSCE Smart to Academy of Smart Lawyers, obviously you've changed your business considerably. You have a different platform now. What was going on in your mind when you saw that there's a change in the whole format? Like obviously you've built something, you've reached a point, and now you have to kind of change things a lot, right? So what was going on with you at that point in your career?
I think my previous experience of failure of the exam itself and setting up the business is the biggest teacher, to be honest. So I already knew more or less what to do anyway. If something happened, it happens. If it doesn't work, it's not the end of the world. I can go to Himalayas and enjoy life there,
Yeah.
of that nature, just to keep it's not the end of the world. And it's way easier when you view the things from this perspective. Plus, if something doesn't work from first attempt, I still can keep on trying. And it's just maybe I need some kind of financial foundation in order to be able to do that. But this is something I've done in advance a little bit, so I could, even during this difficult period, and I think every entrepreneur should be ready for this, because it's the nature of the actual profession, being an entrepreneur. So you have to somehow that there will be uh, times when it will be difficult. I don't know a single one, and I'm very much attached with different digital nomads, many of whom running their own business. Everyone at some point has some issues, and so it's a good thing when you started earning to keep
Yeah.
some savings, to keep some options for yourself, to be able, whenever time comes, to stand up on your two and lift it again.
Right. Well said, Olga. So in your opinion, do you think failure exists?
It's the biggest teacher.
Yeah.
It actually pushes us quite often to, first of all, you can try it again and pass it again.
Yeah.
And it doesn't indicate that you can actually that you're not good enough for reaching this goal, because we are talking possibly about different kind of failures. For different people it can be anything. But in the light of our specific exam, I can even tell to you that some people who do not pass it on the first attempt, and because we are working with them directly, we train them one to one, they are actually one of the most brilliant people. Maybe because it's a standard exam, maybe an unusual way of thinking, etc., can lead someone to wrong exam techniques, not as
Yes.
pragmatic as,
Yes.
and it doesn't mean this person is stupid. What I think is
Yes.
actually great when, if you have on your exam breakdown a record, that's what they do now, but that is an important point, saying that it's your second attempt, but you passed with a high mark. I,
Mm.
as potential employer, I would say, oh, this person is a fighter, can
Yes.
stand up and do it again with a very high mark. And mark proves the knowledge. So
Yes.
actually, at the moment when it happened, it's like it's a crisis. It's hard. You start to doubt yourself. It's very always linked to ego, and we should manage our egos as well to a big extent. To be honest, it can be another problem that, like risks as well, causes a lot of issues and anxiety
Yes.
as well.